to go into our guest tonight, our guest speaker of the night, Mr. Jorge L. Abreu, CEO of JNT Developers and Elevate Commercial Investment Group. JNT Developers is a roof. I think they started off as a roofing company, and they evolved over time where they started doing new construction. They started doing development. So they are very well versed. Yeah, he's actually. Yeah, he's already online. We're very well versed on renovations, looking at projects, creating budgets, knowing how to, look at all the value adds, that type of thing. The Elevate Commercial Investment Group is more of a multifamily investing group. So they do participate passively as well as partners, general partners. He has more than 12 years of experience in real estate and construction. Currently, he owns 253 units with 1,473 units under contract. And that actually just happened in the last 30 days. Yeah, it just happened. They also just closed 216 units in Oklahoma this month, or the end of last month. So he definitely knows what he's talking about. Someone that we're honored to have speaking tonight. And he's passively invested in over 1,400 units. I mean, we're talking about a lot of units here. So he's definitely someone that take notes. You got notes, you got pad, paper. Let's see if we can get him on here now. Not only is he a great guy as far as someone to learn from, he's always willing to give value. But I'll tell you a little story that I saw online about him as well. So not only is he someone that I admire in this industry and his accomplishments, but he's also a family man that really puts family first. Recently, he was at a conference, I believe at the beginning of this week or last week, and he got to Houston. He had a delay. He lives in Dallas. His daughters had a recital, or like their first event, or like I think they do ballet. I'll let him tell the story. All the details he got. The girls are all little. They all had an event. He drove all night, showed up at 5:30 in the morning, and went straight to work and went through his day, distanced, and was able to make the event with his daughters, even though there was a plane delay in Houston. So that's the kind of guy he is. I mean, all around awesome guy. So we're honored to have him, and we're gonna one second.
Yeah, I guess first of all, let me thank you guys for having me. And I've been working on some good content for you guys, so thank you for showing up even with the bad weather. And I'll try to deliver some good nuggets for you. As far as that story, I mean, yeah, you had it right. I was flying back home to Dallas, and the bad weather made us stop in Houston, and then they were telling us we couldn't get there till the next day, but I went ahead and rented a car and drove all night so I can get to my daughter's recital.
Awesome. That means a lot.
Okay, so I know you already kind of gave me an intro. I guess I'll go over a little bit, what I'm going to cover in these slides. Mostly, so a lot of this multifamily and investing in multifamily, a lot of it's done with spreadsheets and analyzing deals. So I kind of wanted to cover, at what point do you step away from those spreadsheets and actually go see the property? And then when you do go see the property, what are you looking for from everything from the area to the actual property? And then as far as how to create a rough budget, and then also a more detailed budget for your CapEx, which in turn can help you put a more confident offer on the property. And then I'm also going to go through the last deal we just closed, which Jesse mentioned, 216 units. It's going to be about 2 weeks since we closed on it. I'm going to go through every stage of that property for you and how we got it all the way to the closing. As far as myself, exactly what Jesse said. I own a general contracting company. We focus on multifamily and commercial renovations. And then I also own Elevate, which is our investment group where we purchase multifamily. And then I also invest passively quite a bit in multifamily. So this is going a little more in depth on the companies. Like I said, on Elevate, we purchase B and C properties. We look for value adds. The heavier the value add, the better. That's really where my skill set shines. I've been owned the construction company for 10 plus years. And before that, I worked in the engineering department for UPS. So I know quite a bit when it comes to construction. And then the construction company, like I said, we focus mainly on multifamily and commercial, and we're currently doing jobs in Texas, Oklahoma, and Arkansas. And then I've got some pictures here, some of the work we've done. On the left, you can see the before pictures. It was a pretty rough looking building when we bought it. And then this was about 60 days in. We completely did a 180 transformation on the building. Then this one was for a client here in Dallas, and we did a full renovation on the exterior for them. And you can see how, just painting the brick changes the curb appeal quite a bit, and then adding like a nice color to make it pop. And these are just some of the clients that we've worked for and some of the properties we've purchased.
What, this all over the last year?
Last year and a half, 2 years.
Oh.
On the construction, we started doing multifamily probably about 4 years ago. And then I personally started investing 2 years ago.
When you said heavy value add, can you kind of explain that a little bit?
Yeah, so pretty much the uglier the property and the more issues there are, the better, as long as the price is right. And
it's specifically B and C, so you're not doing like D, heavy value add?
D, so are we talking about a D building or a D area?
Maybe a D area.
D area, yeah, we stay away from D.
If you're D in a C area, you'll do a D in a C area.
Yeah, I'll definitely do a D building in a C area. Yeah.
Okay, awesome.
That would be great.
Jorge, is there anything that you would, on the value add side, is there any value add that you would not step into? I mean, apart from the location, if let's say, like just saying, if the location is a C location, is there anything that you would not, from your experience, and that you prefer not to be into in terms of heavy value adds?
Yeah, no. Trying to think of one. There's not much that I'm scared of at this point. If the numbers make sense, I don't know. It'd have to be something. Maybe if there's one property that we kind of walked away from because it had some major drainage issues, and it had units below ground.
Oh.
So their water was getting into them. It needed a lot of surface drains and pumps. So that one we kind of just walked away from it. But other than something extreme like that, I mean, not really. As long as you bring someone in that's confident and can get the work done, and you've got exactly what it's going to cost to get it done, and you've got that worked into your numbers, then you're adding value by coming in there and fixing that issue.
Got it.
What about the big on the B and C properties? What about encumbrances on the title? Have you run into anything like that? With that straight?
I have not, but yeah, I mean, that would be something that we would you know, if we can't get the clear title, then yeah, we'd have to walk.
All right.
I have ran into similar things with single family, but not with multifamily. So here's just a couple new construction projects. We also do new construction multifamily. So on the left is a couple that we're working on the plans and going to start building pretty soon. And then the one on the right is one that we already started building.
Where are these at? They're asking.
What area?
Yeah. What cities? What areas?
This is in the uptown, downtown Dallas area.
Nice.
So very modern, chic looking. Yeah, yeah. And these aren't our developments. We're brought in as the general contractor to build them. So other investors are doing them. As far as the investments, I kind of stick to the B and C.
All right.
All right. So this is the case study. This is the one we just closed 2 weeks ago in Oklahoma. And I'm going to take you step by step. So step one is gathering all the property information, you know. So this specific deal, we pulled a report from CoStar. We had done our research on the city. We liked what we saw, so we pulled a report that had all the owners, and then we began just calling them. And happened to be, we spoke to this owner. He was a broker, but he worked for a small firm. He didn't work for Marcus and Millichap or Newmark or any of those. And he had it listed, but it didn't have a lot of exposure. So he was selling it at $28,000 a unit, which is pretty attractive as far as price.
Very attractive.
Yeah. And then as far as the value add, you know, it had a true value add, which none of the units had been upgraded. The rents were under market, and he was also self-managing it. So, you know, at that point, it felt like a deal, felt like something at least, you know, worth looking into. So what we do from there is then we ask specific questions and get more details. I always say the more questions you ask the broker, the better. You know, one, you start building rapport with them, and two, you're not assuming anything. You're getting answers and you're evaluating it correctly. And obviously, you know, to move on to the next step is you get your T12, your rent roll, and then we also pull comps. We have CoStar, a CoStar subscription, so we use the comps from CoStar.
Quick question. I see that there's on the picture, there's a flat roof, and I hear a lot of times there's a debate. No, you know, some people in their underwriting, they'll say no flat roofs, you know, when they go into looking at properties. Can you give us some insight about what the difference is, or in cost, maybe cost differences, or why someone would say, I want to stay away from flat roofs as opposed to pitched roofs?
Yeah, so, you know, I don't think you should stay away from flat roofs. I think you definitely need to have a professional inspect it. But the reason some people say that is, so if you compare a sloped roof, you know, shingles, to a flat roof, and if you're going to remove and replace both of them, you're looking at about double the cost. You know, your sloped roof you can probably get for under $2 a square foot, and then your flat roof, if you're going to remove it and replace it, you're going to be looking more at $4, maybe even more, depending what you're working with on the flat roof. But a lot of the times with the flat roofs, what you can do is you can actually just coat them and restore the existing roof, so you don't have to rip anything off. And at that point, it becomes a lot closer in price to a steep roof. And plus, a good flat roof will actually last you longer than a shingled roof. So I definitely would not just walk from a property.
Flat roof. what would you say is the life of a flat roof? And is it more maintenance? Because I've also heard, you know, that puddles up and there's.
Yeah. I mean, there's you definitely want to be checking it more. And if you got some ponding water, you definitely want to have it inspected. But if you maintain it correctly, I mean, it could last for 20 years. You know, it's hard to say with us living in Texas and,
Yeah, I get that.
you know, this one being in Oklahoma, you know, the storms kind of cut the life of the roof. But yeah, I mean, you can get some flat roofs with a 20-year NDL warranty. So yeah, I wouldn't walk from a property just because it had a flat roof. That's for sure.
So if you're at the 15-year mark, let's say you're at the 15-year mark, they say the age of the roof is 15 years, and you're gonna do you're estimating like a 5-year hold, maybe 7-year hold. Would you factor in replacement of the roofs into your underwriting?
These
Or
are,
how would you approach?
yeah, these are flat roofs.
Yeah, the flat roofs. If, let's say you're at the 15-year, they say, oh, it's about 15 years, 16 years old.
Yeah, I would coat them all. I would put that into my underwriting.
Okay, perfect.
So as far as moving forward to step 2, I have what you call more like a quick and dirty type of underwriting. That's the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to plug in the numbers there and see what that's getting us as far as a return. As you can see, this isn't the one for this exact property, but you know, this is showing an 8 point something for year 1, and then it skips over to 16% year 2. So this is one that I would definitely move forward and go to the next step. Next step would be,
how did you come up with that spreadsheet, or how do you advise people arrive at getting one of those?
yeah, I mean, there's so many out there. This one I kind of took from others that I had gotten in the industry and kind of put it together. You know, it's nothing special. It just gives me a quick idea of whether it's worth digging more into. So I don't know on that one.
Right. We'll help them with that.
Okay. Okay, so step 3 is, so if the quick underwriting looks good, my next move is setting up for the tour, for the property tour. But I don't want to just go out there. You know, a lot of investors just shoot out to the property tour. You know, we only have so much time, especially in this business. I mean, we're evaluating deals left and right. We got to be really efficient with our time. So I send this wish list of questions over to the broker or to the owner, and I have them answer this before I head over to the property tour. Now, not that I get this all the time, that I get the answers back all the time, but I try, and you'd be surprised. Sometimes they give you some pretty good information. And just so you guys know, I'm going to, at the end of this, I'm going to give you my emails, and if you guys email me, I'll go ahead and send you these slides because I know I'm moving kind of quick through them.
All right. Appreciate that.
Yeah. So I've got a video here of me actually doing the property tour of this property. So I was going to play a little bit of that.
Sure.
Give me 1 second though, because I got to turn my speakers.
Is he under contract at this point, or where's he at in the transaction?
He wants to know where you're at in the process of they closed. You closed already, right?
He's already there.
Yes,
Here,
good.
step 4, or like in?
Oh, okay. No, right here, the video that you're going to show us. What step in the process are you when you got to this video stage?
Yeah. So at this point, all I've done is the underwriting, and that's it. The underwriting looks good. So I've done it two ways. I've done it this way, which is do my underwriting, everything looks good, then go visit the property, then submit my LOI. I've also done it to where I do a little more homework and try to do as much as I possibly can without going to see the property, submit the LOI, get an approved LOI, and then go do my property tour. You know, if the property's close by, I'll probably do it this way. You know, go see it first. If it's further away, then try to get the LOI approved and then go see it. Does that answer the question?
All right.
Okay. So give me 1 second to figure out. I lost the controls. There they are. All right, speakers.
We're at our third apartment complex today. It's gonna be our last stop. It's starting to get dark,
We can't hear you.
but
You can't hear anything?
Uh-uh.
put together a renovation rough estimate so that we can finalize our numbers and submit an LOI. So on this building,
No, we can't hear it, man. Should we try to pull it up on the computer? Or? Do you have this on YouTube?
Yeah, give me 1 second. Hold on. Okay, so that was a fail. I'll explain to you on the property tour. So at this point, so I've gone ahead and I've asked them. Let me get.
Is he like incognito when he does this or what?
Are you incognito? Are you secret shopping? Are you, because he said you were in a beanie, so are you doing this in a secret shopping manner, or did you have
No, it was a little cold. It was a little cold. No, the owner and the broker know for sure that we're going.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I've done the secret shopper, and yeah, the beanie would be a good look for that one. But yeah, no, this one they know. They've answered most of these questions for me. They've got the vacant units. I've asked them to have some of the vacant units ready for us to see. I want to see one of each floor plan, and I also want to see a classic unit and then any type of upgraded units they've done. So when I go to this property tour and I leave, I'm going to have a really good idea of what the property needs. I even jump on the roof sometimes if they let me. Sometimes they don't.
Or in regards to the wiring, for example, things like wiring and plumbing, do you basically at this point, at this stage, do you go and open main panels, or do you give it a trust? You trust the broker response on that?
Yeah, you never trust what the broker tells you. Never. You ask them and you get the information, but you definitely double check everything. So at this stage on the plumbing, all I'm really going to do is try to pinpoint whether it has PVC or cast iron. One quick way of doing that is looking for the cleanouts that stick out of the ground. If it's a white PVC pipe, then most likely you have PVC. That doesn't necessarily mean 100% that you do, because they may have just repaired that section and changed it to PVC. But if you see cast iron, then you definitely have older pipes, and you probably want to factor something in there for plumbing. And then, so let me get back here. Okay, no video. I'm here at our third apartment complex today. It's going to be our last stop. It's starting to get dark, but here checking out another apartment complex.
putting together a renovation rough estimate so that we can finalize our numbers and submit an LOI. So on this building, first thing I'm looking at is it's clearly flat roofs. So definitely gonna want to get up there and see what type of condition they're in. It's got sort of a mansard style with wood shingle siding. So I'm gonna know right off the bat that's pretty old siding. As you can see, it's got some pieces that are coming off. So we'll have to do some repairs there or decide to replace it. Gonna go around, take a good look at the brick, check for cracks, check the foundation, see the landscape and the drainage. Back here you can see some of the amenities. Got the pool. First glance, it looks like it's in pretty good shape. On the back side, got some siding under the windows, above and under the windows, which seems to be in decent shape. A lot of walkways. Gonna take a good look at that, look for tripping hazards. And right here there's something going on, some brick missing. Gonna take a closer look at that. Here, this wood or siding is kind of rotted. And yeah, just gonna keep taking a look around. The landscape looks like it's in pretty good shape. Not a big fan of them keeping their grill right there. Would probably like to see if there's a way to add community grill and picnic tables or something like that. All right, well, that's a quick view. I'm gonna look in a little deeper, see what I find. Here's the leasing office over here. Pool, obviously. You got a laundry room. And overall, it's a good looking property. You can tell they keep up with the maintenance and actually care about their community. A lot of Christmas decorations all around. Just very clean looking. Especially after the two properties we just left that were the complete opposite. You can instantly tell the difference. It seems like most of the exterior lights are working. So far I like what I see. It's got great exposure to this very busy street. A lot of shopping centers all around. You can see some more of the Christmas decorations. Cool little helicopter on the covered parking. So you can see here's a main street I was talking about, and a lot of retail stores down each way. Wouldn't have to do much marketing, that's for sure. So my other team's checking out the units right now, the interior units, while I'm going around and checking everything on the exterior. I did find a couple things, like they've got a shop that they kind of built on, but it doesn't look very good. It's a pretty bad eyesore. So we probably want to fix that up. The playground has expired. It's in pretty bad shape, so we'd probably put in a new playground and maybe find some other amenities that we can add. But so far so good. I'm gonna keep taking a look.
Can you lower a little bit? One question I have for you, John Jorge, is, and we have on the audience, we have people that are interested in bigger size units like this one, but there's also people that might be interested in smaller units. Anything that you would, I mean, some of it would apply also to the smaller units, but anything that would be from your contracting, from contractor and inspector side, anything that you would recommend to look for, what pitfalls or things to be exclusive from the smaller size units, 4, 5, 10, 12 units?
No, I mean, it's all pretty similar. I mean, it's just smaller, but it's the same. I would still inspect the exact same things. You know, obviously you're not going to have the same amenities, but other than that, you know, you still want to check the skin of the building, the exterior walls, the roof, the foundation, the drainage, your windows, your mechanicals. If anything, you want to even be more detailed, because when you're dealing with a smaller amount of units, your money doesn't go as far. So, you know, replacing one AC unit and you've only got 4 units, that's a big expense. That's really going to throw your numbers off.
Yeah, the needle is more sensitive.
Yes, definitely. And that's from experience. The first property we purchased was not that small. I mean, it was 37 units, but you know, managing, my suggestion, go bigger. You know, go 80 plus, where you can have a healthy payroll, and you can pay people to be full-time on your property. You'll have to be a lot less hands-on, and you can continue to scale.
Correct. Yep.
And I know that's more on a property management aspect and not the due diligence, but that's my experience on that.
Yeah, with all those inspections, what about a pest inspection?
What kind of inspection?
Pest.
Pest?
Okay.
Yes, 100%. I think you should do that. So, you know, on this one, we had a termite pest inspection done. They found some termite damage in both laundry rooms. So we went ahead and worked that in. It's in our CapEx budget, and it's already scheduled to get done.
Jorge, was that specific pest inspection done as part of the due diligence before or after?
Yes, as part of the due diligence, they followed us around unit by unit. They went in and inspected every single unit.
Okay.
So, you know, when you go to do these property tours, just have a similar list like I have here of what you're looking for, and make sure you cover all aspects of it. And then what I do is, as soon as I leave, you know, within 24 hours, I go ahead and I jump into doing my rough renovation budget. So all the data I got when I was on property, take lots of pictures, take lots of videos while you're there, and then go ahead and put something together. You know, it doesn't maybe have to be as detailed as I have here, but pretty much the more comfortable you feel with this, the more confident you are with your offer. So I go through and I've got some rough numbers that, for the most part, you know, when I do this, I come between 5 and 10% plus or minus of the detailed scope of work. I don't know if you guys have any questions as far as how I do this or anything specific.
I hate to keep asking these questions, but how many people, when you're walking the property, how many people do you have besides yourself looking at the interior of the property to determine what needs to be repaired for your rough renovation budget?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that. Actually, I wanted to say something about that. So, I've gone where it's just two of us. I've gone where it's six of us. So it just depends. And remember, this isn't due diligence. So on due diligence, I'm gonna have a lot more people on site, a lot more crews. But this is just a property tour. And what I was gonna say is, don't necessarily just if you've got a team with you, if you've got 5 partners with you, don't all just go and do the same thing, and you're all looking at the same things. Split up, have a plan. Like in this video, I was the one in charge of doing the exteriors. So while my partners were looking at the vacant units, I was looking at the exteriors. So just have a plan and delegate that accordingly. But remember, you're not looking at every vacant unit yet, so it's not like you need that big of a team with you.
Chris, got a question for you.
Yeah.
So when you go through initial walkthrough, just understanding the property, when it's a chiller system, is there any specific telltale signs you look for?
With chillers and boilers, I honestly just want to see how old the system looks. Do I see any leaks, any red flags? I take several pictures. If there's a model number by chance that can give me the year, I take pictures of that, and then I can send it off to the licensed plumber or licensed HVAC and kind of have them take a look at that and see what they think.
What about anything related to the lines of the chiller?
Yeah, I mean, just on that, just taking a look at them and see what's the age, how bad do they look. When it comes down to due diligence, which you'll see, I'm going to tell you to make sure you get a professional out to inspect all of those. But right now, you're just trying to get an overall feel for it.
We have some people that are fairly new. Can you kind of explain the difference between a property tour and due diligence, and more or less when you would do the tour?
Sure. So a property tour is before you've, well, it could be after you place an offer, but you don't have anything under contract. This is the first time you're actually touring the property. Most brokers are going to want you to do that before you even submit an LOI. Sometimes you can get away with submitting the LOI without doing the property tour, but most of the times they want you to tour it, and you're not going to get complete access to everything. So you just want to try to see as much as you can and get the best idea possible so that you can then turn around and submit an LOI. Then once you submitted your LOI and let's say you get it under contract, that's when you'll do your due diligence, and that's where the seller needs to give you full access to the property, and you want to check everything at that point.
The property tour is like a walkthrough then.
What was that?
I said the property tour then is just like the initial walkthrough.
Yes.
Initial walkthrough, basically. All right.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so once you have that, now you can do a detailed underwriting with, a more exact renovation cost and better feel for the units. And then you can take this underwriting, and this is what you're going to base your offer off of. Once again, I didn't think we were going to go too much into the actual underwriting, so I just did a simple screenshot. And then the next step would be submitting your LOI, and then hopefully going to contract. So then once you go under contract, like I just said, then it's going to be time for due diligence. And here, you guys probably aren't going to get the audio on this, but this is a really short video just to give you an idea of how many people, when we have due diligence, are there on site. Oh, wait, that didn't work. Hold on. So as you can see, I mean, there's people checking the exterior, guys inside, just people everywhere. I think we had at least 30 plus individuals on site.
Jorge, are these people paid on your team? Are these members that you have touring this property? I mean, they're all part of your team?
So it's a mixture, which actually I cover here on the left. So it's a mixture of so you're doing your unit by unit walks. That's going to be either your team, your internal team. Some property management companies will offer to do that, and also they'll charge, or if you give them the property management, they'll most likely cover the fees.
Okay. And do you provide them with your own little checklist of things you want to look at when they're in those units?
I would, and I would also walk it with them.
Oh, you walk every single unit? That's outstanding.
Yes, someone from my team, not me personally. I mean, I do some, and then, but yeah, 216 units, that would take a long time. If it was just me, but I would like somebody from my team to at least walk each unit. And then you can also pay an inspector to do it. You can pay a contractor to do it as well. And this is just so I'm talking about the unit by unit walk.
Yeah, just to add to that, yeah, you want to minimize surprises on takeover. So even though it's a little bit more work, every unit is you don't want your property manager hiding everything in just one or two properties that have warehouses out of units that you don't get shown. You're not shown. So 100% agree with Jorge on that.
Yeah, it happens all the time. So many buildings I've walked where, we've gone through, we've asked all these questions, they've gotten us the answers, and they just haven't been truthful. We get to the property and we start walking, and we want to get into every single unit, and then we find out that they're hiding, just one unit over here is down, and they didn't tell us it was down, and it's just, a lot of the times it's storage. A lot of times you'll just see it full of stuff. But I mean, putting one of those units back up, you're talking about 15 grand versus maybe 5 grand. So it can make a difference. And then,
Sorry, oh, the 5 grand or 15 grand? You're talking about. Okay, just mentioning about the upgrades on the upgrade itself. What would a 5 grand upgrade, $5,000 upgrade look like in general terms? What would you?
yeah, I guess let me explain what I just said. So usually when a unit is down, it means that most likely that the property management has not had that unit leased for a long time, and they don't even plan on it, and they're probably just storing stuff in there. A lot of the times the AC units have been stripped for parts. The cabinets are a mess. So it needs a full gut. So that's why I'm saying about 15 grand for that versus 5 grand, which will just get you a regular upgrade. Maybe some, talking about paint throughout, resurface countertops and tile, and then, possibly new light and plumbing fixtures. If you're going to throw in new flooring and new cabinets, then the price starts getting a little bit higher. closer to, you know, if you want to do both of those, probably closer to like 8,000. And obviously that all kind of depends on area, finish outs, but just to give you a rough idea.
Okay.
And then, so to continue on to the due diligence, same thing I said before with the property tours. You know, you got to make sure even more with the due diligence that you're going to be extremely organized and efficient. A lot of pre-planning goes into it. You want to make sure you get professionals to inspect some of these items. So, you know, not talking about the unit by units. This is more of the structural and mechanicals of the building. So you want to, and some of these you're going to have to pay for. So scoping your sewer lines, 100% you need to do that to all your properties, and you're going to have to pay for it. What that does is if you scope them and you find breaks in your sewer lines and it's under the concrete slab, it's going to cost quite a bit, and that's something you definitely want to bring up to the seller and get that price negotiated before you're too far along, or you own the property and then you got to pay $20,000 to fix plumbing that wasn't in your CapEx. And then boilers, chillers, I know we talked about that for a little bit. Definitely want to have a professional inspect them, take a good look at them. Same with foundation and drainage, termites we talked about, and your parking lots, your roofs. That covers most of the stuff where you want to get somebody that specializes in those specific trades. You can throw probably electrical in there too if you've got some older electrical.
Jorge, anything in particular that you look for in the parking lot? Anything that you look for, signs of, you know, any issues in terms of the parking lot itself?
Yes, on the parking lots, you've got two aspects of it. One is cosmetic. You know, does it need to be resealed or restriped? If it's, what I mean by resealed, asphalt, you can seal it and it'll look brand new without having to do anything but that. And then the restripe is, you know, you restripe all the parking lines and it gives it a nice curb appeal. It's pretty inexpensive. And then on the other side, you've got the functional part. You know, if you've got a bunch of potholes and you've got cracked concrete everywhere, that's when it starts getting a little more expensive. And it just depends whether it's asphalt or if it's concrete, you know, how much that's going to cost.
As far as electric, aluminum versus copper, and would you stay away from a property that did like aluminum with pigtails? Is that like something that you would stay away from? Is that something that's not very dangerous? Is it risky to have pigtails? Let me ask you that.
Is it, so if I had to choose, yeah, of course I'd want copper over aluminum. So the fix for aluminum is doing the pigtails. You know, I haven't ran into issues with the pigtails, but I would definitely have it inspected. So, you know, same thing we said earlier. The seller tells you, or the broker tells you, oh, they've got pigtails on everything. It's okay. That's fine. I'm bringing an electrician during due diligence, and we are randomly checking plugs and switches throughout and making sure if that's accurate. Because it could be they just did it in some and left it undone in others.
Can you explain a little bit briefly about pigtails?
Yeah, so one of the issues with aluminum wiring is at any point that you have connections, it's a hazard for a fire. The aluminum starts giving out and causing sparks within the walls, which causes a fire. So what pigtails does is the theory behind it is to eliminate those connections, and you're connecting the tip of the aluminum wire to copper, and that way your copper is connecting to your plugs, your switches, your lights. And and the only connection you have then is the aluminum to the copper, and they've got these special connections for that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you.
Without getting too
Any
technical.
questions on that? Oh, someone does have a question on that real quick.
I just have a quick question.
Sure.
So for the, let's say pigtails, are you checking in step 4 due diligence or step 8?
Step 8.
Okay.
Yeah.
If
On
you
step
find
4, they're not going to let you really start opening things up.
Let's say you find those things. It being that step 7, you're already in contract, you can't go back to them and renegotiate, or is it just a done deal?
No, you absolutely can. So that's why you have your due diligence period. You want to make sure you work in at least 30 days. We try to shoot for 45 at first, but depends what market you're in. At least you want 30 days. Those 30 days, you're going to check everything. And let's say this electrical issue comes up, then you get it's going to cost $30,000 to fix it. You take that estimate from the electrician and you send it to the seller and you say, hey, look, I need a discount for $30,000 because of this.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, she said.
Awesome. And then, so you can always also hire a general contractor to help you with this and to coordinate everything during due diligence. Pricing for your deferred maintenance and upgrades from DC. Yeah, and then you also, there's two aspects of the whole due diligence. You're looking at the deferred maintenance issues, and then you're also looking at the upgrades. What you want to fix with the property. So you want to try to get hard numbers on that as well. So you're not only inspecting the existing, but also try to get pricing for, let's say you want to add a playground, or you want to add a pergola, and you want to upgrade half the units. So try getting hard numbers on that as well. And then this is a quick slide just kind of covering some of the stuff that sometimes I've seen gets overlooked, and some of the most common ones. So roof, always get the roof inspected no matter what, even if the owner or broker is telling you the roofs are new, you get a professional out there to check it. On the flat roofs, inspecting those are a little more detailed. You want to make sure that they do a core sample. What a core sample is, they actually cut into the roof, and that way they know how many layers and what's under that flat roof. And the last thing on the roofing is how you can save money doing, like I said earlier, coating the roofs versus actually ripping them off and putting new ones with flat roofs. The exterior walls.
We got a question about the roof.
Yeah.
On the roof layers, what's an acceptable amount, or what's a maximum that you would accept as how many layers on the roof?
Not really how many layers, it's more what are the layers, and what's the decking underneath, what condition is the decking in, and then what layers have been put on there and how heavy are those layers. It's really tough. There's so many different applications for flat roofs, and you can run into so many different things. That's why we like to check it, make sure everything underneath is good. If it is, then I suggest you do a coating. If it's not, then that's when you kind of need to visit removing it and replacing it. I know that's not the best answer, but
We got a question.
So question there on that point, Jorge. So Please correct me if I'm wrong. So, but what I'm hearing is that you would probably try first to do a coating, and if it doesn't work, then knowing that if it doesn't work, then you have to do a full replacement.
Yes.
Oscar, does that answer your question? So you said, yep, okay.
Yeah, and what would cause that? So if you do the core sample and there's a lot of moisture buildup within that roofing system, that's one thing that would rule out doing a coating. And then a bad roof deck. So if underneath the deck is bad, then you got to take it up and redo it.
In terms of the roofing itself, do you rather do tar and gravel, or is there anything that particular that for multifamily, this industry, when you get into a property that needs new roofing, you rather go to like TPO versus tar and gravel? Is there anything that you would recommend or suggest, or what do you do?
Yeah, I mean, TPO seems to be the go-to. You know, if somebody really does want to do an overlay or replace the roof, I would say TPO.
Is that the cheapest one or the less expensive one? Just for the sake of the people that are not that experienced?
Yeah, it's not the cheapest. It's just one of the easier ones to maintain. They're all pretty similar in price.
Okay. Any questions?
When they're doing the rehab, like as far as the interior of the paint, do they use a quality paint or is it just like a base paint?
Okay, so Oscar is asking, when you're doing rehabs, in terms of the paint, do you look like a premium type of paint or a basic low cost paint for the rehabs?
Yeah, so we don't go super low cost on it. Sherwin-Williams and PPG have a specific line for commercial multifamily, and it's decent quality but still inexpensive.
Thank you.
So exterior walls, balconies, and walkways is something you definitely want to pay attention to. And when I say exterior walls, so a lot of the times investors will kind of just look at it and say, okay, it just needs paint. But I say look a little further and see, you know, if your siding's rotted, then paint's not going to fix that. So definitely want to know the condition of the material. And then the structural on balconies and walkways, that can get costly. So you want to make sure you check on that. And there's always issues, not always, but a lot of the times there's issues with that. The sewer lines, you know, I talked about that already. Just make sure you get them scoped. And then foundation and drainage. So one thing I see a lot is investors fixing the foundation, or even foundation companies telling you what you need to fix the foundation and put it back up to level, but they don't pay attention to what's causing that. So if you don't fix what's causing the issues, then all you're going to do is get your foundation level, and then a year or 2 years from now, it's going to start moving again. It's usually your drainage. If your water is draining towards your foundation and not away from your foundation, you're going to continue to have issues. And then sometimes it's also your sewer lines. If you've got slab leaks, then that's going to cause your foundation to shift as well. And then the last thing is termites, which we've also talked about. Also make sure to get that inspected. Yeah.
Sorry, in regards to the foundation, I've walked properties where there is a decline or a steep, you know, a slope on the flooring.
For sure.
Itself, and I mean, if you could maybe talk a little bit about it, because I've heard people saying instead of fixing the foundation, just put some concrete on the floor and just make it level. yeah, just the flooring, but pretty much keeping the foundation the same way it is. Anything that you would suggest or mention there?
Yeah, I'm not opposed to what you're saying there, floating the flooring to make up for that. And I'm guessing we're not talking about a crazy amount of difference in slope there. But back to what I just said, make sure you take care of what's causing that, what's causing the foundation to shift. We live in Texas. If we're buying properties in Texas, it's most likely going to have some foundation shifting. The question is it normal shifting or is it significant? And if so, how do we stop it from continuing to happen? And if we stop it from continuing to happen and we just need to float some of the flooring, I'm not opposed to that.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on due diligence?
Yes, on these older properties, on the B and C properties, on the American Disabilities Act, or is there any concern there with these older properties conforming to that act when you go to purchase or rehab these properties?
Yeah, so I mean, sometimes the lender is going to require you to do some things. One thing I learned is the 37 units we purchased, it was actually 36 units with an office. When the lender thought we were going to keep that office, and they were requiring us to do some ADA adjustments. But then once we told them, look, that's our 37th unit, we're taking that office and turning it into a 37th unit, at that point they no longer required us to do it because there was no anywhere for the public to go. There was no leasing office.
Private access only.
Correct.
Okay. All right.
So at that point, they're not going to make you change every single unit. And the adjustments that we're going to make us do are just for that leasing office as well, just because the public can walk to there. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Anything else on due diligence?
Nope, looks like we're good.
Okay. So next step is, once your due diligence is done, you've collected all the data, you've got estimates, then you're going to revise your budget. And you're going to go into what I call pre-construction. Before you even close on it, you're going to start gearing up for doing the renovations. You're going to try to finalize your scope of work, what exactly you're going to be doing. And I would go ahead and hire your general contractor, get them ready. We usually do a pre-construction meeting on site with the client, get everybody on the same page, so that, a week, 2 weeks from closing, you're in there full force, putting your business plan together, putting the dollars that you put for the CapEx to use, and not wasting any time.
Okay.
So that's what I'm doing tomorrow. So tomorrow I'm going to the 216 unit building. We closed on it about a week and a half ago, meeting my crews out there, my project manager, and kind of just going through everything and getting started we'll be starting Monday. So a little recap on the financials on this deal. Purchase price ended up being $6,170,000. Our CapEx was close to 1.2. Closing fees, so all in 7.5. And then once we stabilize it, the value is going to jump up to 10.5. So we increased the value by $3 million.
And that's going to be expected to be in how long? How long does the stabilization supposed to occur?
Yeah, 18 months is a good projection for this one.
So $3.5 million, $4.5 million increase in 1.5 months, 1.5 years. 216. 216 units.
Was this a heavy value add or
Would you consider this a heavy or a medium value add?
You know, it's not heavy in the sense that deferred maintenance wise, it's not very heavy. But we don't, none of the units were upgraded. So as far as an income status, yeah, it's pretty heavy because we're going to be able to get rent bumps on all the units.
It's not like it's a lot of, it's not very really hard work. It's a lot.
Right, right. There you go.
Who's this property management company?
The question is, who's your property management company for this property?
Yeah, so we've hired Trinity Multifamily. They have a really strong presence in Oklahoma and Arkansas.
Okay, yeah, that was a question.
Okay.
What's the question? Upgrades per unit? How much per unit are you averaging at in terms of the expense for the upgrades?
Okay, for the full budget, including exterior and everything, or just for the interior units?
Per unit, on the units themselves, just keeping out common stuff.
Yeah, so we got really detailed on this one. There were certain units that were getting us much higher rent bumps. So the 2 bedrooms were. So as you can see here, we kind of split it. I don't know if you guys can see the screen that well, but
you can zoom in. It looks a little bit small, but if you zoom in, it's probably gonna look great.
I don't think I can zoom in. So I'll kind of break it down for you. So we've got some that we're calling medium upgrades, and then some that we're calling partial upgrades, and then some major upgrades. So the major ones are the down units that I was talking about, and that's at 15,000 per unit. They have 2 units that are water damaged. And then the medium upgrade, which we're doing 88 units on that, is 4,335 per unit, and that includes resurface countertops and tubs and tile, install new light fixtures, install new plumbing fixtures, paint all the walls, or paint everything, including cabinets.
Anything on flooring on that specific upgrade?
No, so that's one thing that they did have. They had upgraded the flooring to vinyl, and there's still some carpet, but they did add some vinyl plank.
Okay.
And then the partial upgrade is the same thing I just mentioned, except no lighting fixtures. We're just going to replace the plumbing fixtures.
Jorge, we got a question. Another question for you.
Jorge, can you tell us a little bit more, after all this renovations, what were the rent bumps like? Did the clientele change? Can you talk a little bit about that? Did you have a hard time getting the higher rents considering the area, that sort of thing? Would be helpful.
Sure. So, on this one, when we initially looked at it, we were thinking higher rent bumps, also putting more into the units. But as we kept digging into the area, we realized that we probably weren't going to capture that this area didn't really call for that much of upgrades. So we're doing pretty moderate rent bumps on these. If I remember correctly, I want to say $50, maybe 75. I can't remember exactly. I'd have to go look. But
So just to clarify, for the people that are not that experienced, so you're talking about spending in the medium upgrade, for example, $4,300 to get a $50 to $75 rent bump per month.
correct. So, let's say it's 75 times 12. Yeah, so that's giving me roughly 14,000 in year one as far as a return in one unit.
Brilliant.
And then there's some other plays in here as far as expense. So it was self-managed. So now with a professional property manager, we're going to make some changes on the expenses that are also going to bring value to the property.
I do have a question.
Yes, give me a second.
I'm curious about long-term tenants that are in the property right now that need renovation. Do you wait till they move out as you increase the rent, or do you do the renovation and give them an option to leave? I'm just curious.
Yeah, so usually we'll come in and we'll tackle. So this property's got 28 vacant units right now. That's another value add. They just had all these units sitting there. So first thing is we'll come in, we'll fix all those up. My plan is to have them all ready to go within 60 days.
All
And
20 of them?
Yes.
That's the priority.
Yeah, because that's just value sitting right there. So we're gonna put in 3 to 4 crews and just knock it out. Then once we do that and we've got the occupancy up, at that point we'll visit with all the tenants and give them an option. Like, hey, look, let's say their lease still doesn't end for 8 months. We'll still meet with them and we'll tell them, look, we can come in and we can give you these upgrades. We'll give them maybe 2 options. We can paint your cabinets and resurface your countertops and change out your lighting. We'll do that now, and then you'll have to sign a new lease for $75, increasing your rent by $75. Or give them something maybe a little bit less. We won't do the light fixtures, and you'll do $50. We give them that option. If they say no, then it's like, okay, well, when your lease expires, that's our plan, is to come in and do that and get the higher rent. Does that make sense?
All right, now, as you progress along and renovate these properties, how long, or is there a stage in which you decide to sell this complex off? Or do you plan on keeping it for like 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, or indefinitely, or is there a timeline when you decide to vacate the ownership of the property?
It's a great question. So we go in a little different. A lot of people are thinking 3 to 5 years they want to exit. We think a little more long term. Honestly, I'd like to keep it as long as possible if it's cash flowing. And that a lot of, it depends with the market, where does the market go in the cycle? As far as the financing, how good is my long-term financing? And if all that lines up, I'd like to keep it.
Okay.
At the same time, if we have an upcycle, and just depends.
But your average, the typical property you You're saying you would.
We
try
go
to-
in with set up to hold on for 10 years. We go in with that plan in place.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, give me a second. Oscar has another question.
So as you do the renovations on the property, say 2-5 years down the road, how do you handle the insurance on the property? Is it just basic liability, or are you increasing the amount of coverage based on the improvements to the property?
So the lender, depending on what you do, your lender may require you to change your insurance. If they don't require you to change it, we usually go in with a pretty good insurance where we feel like we've got really good coverage, where it's not really necessary to change unless we do something. I don't know, if we add some units, you definitely need to change it, which we've done a lot, gone in and created units out of office space or just different things like that. But other than that, you don't have to change the insurance that much.
Jorge, could you mention, now that we're talking on the insurance topic, or talking about insurance, what typically do you want to be covered for in the insurance?
Everything. No, I mean, you've got to, more than anything, you've got to watch the deductible. Most likely you're going to have coverage for everything, but what's your deductible? If a tornado hits, which actually just happened to, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Rockcliffe, but yeah, I was actually in Ohio when that tornado hit, not in the same city, but yeah, let's say, he had coverage for tornado, but his deductible was $200,000. So now he's going to have to pay $200,000 before he sees any of that coverage.
And loss of rent, yeah.
Yeah, loss of rent is big. That's true. We just had a fire in one of our buildings less than a month ago, and luckily we have the rent loss, and we're getting paid for those units.
Okay. Just to mention something that I actually read today, I think it was one of the Facebook group that somebody was asking, do I want to insure or have coverage in my insurance for terrorist acts? And somebody was talking about that and asking if it was worth it. Actually, Neil Bauer said, no.
What do you say? No?
I mean, based on risk, it's risk-based.
Yeah.
Based on risk, he was saying just put your money somewhere else. And
yeah, that one comes up a lot. They always want to exclude that.
What's your opinion on it? What's your take on it?
I mean, I haven't experienced anything that would cause a loss because of that. If Neil says don't worry about it, I'll probably follow his lead on that.
Okay. Yeah, knock on wood, by the way.
Yeah, for real. Okay, and I think I was talking about the financials. Okay, so why we liked this certain deal, just to kind of give you a summary on it, break it down. The purchase price at $28,000 per door was very attractive. The way the market is right now, it's pretty hard to find something under $30,000. And obviously that the area matters on that too. The condition of the property. So for the most part, the roofs were newer. They were well maintained. There was no major foundation or plumbing issues. It has individual AC units, individual water heaters, so no boilers, no chillers. Had a good unit mix, some large floor plans, and quite a bit of amenities from pool, gym, nice looking sauna, and 2 playgrounds. It cash flowed from day one, so that's another reason I say it's not a huge value add or as far as an undertaking, because at least you're cash flowing from day one. And then we were able to make the numbers work, still being conservative on the rent bumps and the cost segregation on it as well.
If you can add a little bit again for the people that might not be that experienced on what you're talking about when you're talking about cost segregation.
Yeah, so ideally it's a great incentive for mainly for your investors. You pay an engineer to come out and do a report, and then they tell you how much you can depreciate of the property year one, and it's usually a pretty good percentage. And then you can take that and offset it with your other earnings. By no means am I a CPA, but that's essentially how it works. You know, you're making $200,000 over here, and you're taking a $200,000 loss on this property, then you don't have to pay taxes that year on that. And then I just got a couple more. I don't know how we're doing on time. Are we good? Or
We're good. We got like 10 more minutes.
okay, great. So a couple more tips I wanted to give you guys. How to properly hire a contractor. I see it all the time where investors just don't do their homework on the contractor and maybe just shop per price or whatnot. But you know, you're dealing. You've got investors that are trusting you. You're dealing with large renovations. You want to make sure whoever you hire to do this work is qualified and essentially has something to lose. A lot of the times I see where, you know, somebody tells me they got burned by a contractor. I ask them who the contractor is. I do a quick search and I find nothing on them online. That right there is a red flag. You know, nowadays, if they're not on Facebook, if they don't have a website, if just doesn't make sense. You know, they've got essentially nothing to lose as far as reputation. And then I would definitely ask for references, and I would call those references and talk to them and try to get some case studies out of it. If you can go see some of their previous work, even better. You want to ask them for their insurance. Last thing you want is for them to be working on your building and someone falling, and then that liability, and then you being liable for that versus the contractor. And then some credentials. So I put a bunch of our credentials down here in the bottom. You know, the more, the better. These, for the most part, these credentials do their own vetting as well. So to meet their standards, you've got to be a good and reputable contractor.
Because the easiest one of all Google reviews, right?
Say that again?
The easiest one of all Google reviews.
Yeah. I mean, you can learn a lot from Google reviews.
You might not get to see the good reviews there, but definitely you will see the bad ones.
Yeah, for sure. And you know, whenever somebody has something bad to say, they're a lot quicker to say it than something good. But you know, if they've got a majority of good reviews, and I'm not saying you may run into a couple bad ones, but read it and see what they're actually saying. Sometimes you can tell that, you know, maybe it wasn't that person's fault.
Yeah, I've seen myself when I personally do Google reviews when I'm starting to look at properties, and like you're saying, when you see just one review out of 50 or out of 30 that have a pretty bad issue, but everything else is kind of average, versus 10, 20 people saying the same thing that is wrong, either pest control or mold or something like that, it's a red flag, like you mentioned.
For sure. Yeah, I know once we had someone leave us a bad review because we showed up this was for a roof estimate, and there was 5 other roofing contractors on site waiting for the client. And we decided to kind of opt out on it, and just, we told the client, look, you got 5 other contractors here. I understand you want other estimates. That's fine. I'm sure one of them can take care of you. We've got a lot going on. And she got upset and wrote a bad review because of that. And I mean, so yeah. Okay, so once you're at least working with a reputable contractor, then it's time to kind of dig a little further. One is their scope of work. I don't know how many times I've seen where it's just a paragraph and then, $1 million, this paragraph. The more detailed, the better on the scope of work. The less room there is for interpretation. And then materials, another thing I see a lot is it's not specified how much allowance for a material. So, the contractor can't be telling you, oh, I'm going to replace all the sink faucets. Okay, but what allowance are you giving me on those sink faucets, or are you just going to supply the cheapest sink faucet there is? Communication, so you can ask them, how are you going to communicate with me throughout the project? Well, I know when we do a renovation for a multifamily investor, our goal is for that investor to not have to go on site. We use software, project management software, where we give daily updates with pictures, videos. You know exactly what's going on, and you never have to step foot on the property. So that's a good question to ask the contractor. If they've got no system put in place for that, and maybe you're an outside investor, maybe it's not a good fit. Kind of the same thing with the change orders. What's their process? Do they have a process for change orders? Do they just do the work and then charge you, or do they actually get approval before they do it?
How about the terms, Jorge? Any recommendations on the terms?
Payment terms, or?
Yeah, payment terms.
It depends. So if we're talking about a general contractor, we like to come in and get a 20% deposit if we're going to be doing the whole renovation, because that allows us to really kickstart the project and get everything moving. If you're hiring a single trade for something, I think you can work in some better terms on that. I would say if somebody's just doing labor, definitely don't go heavy on what you're giving them if you're giving them a deposit at all. If they're supplying materials, then that's a little different. You may want to work in a little more of a deposit for the materials, and so just make sure at any point you're not overpaying them to where you put yourself in a bind.
You always want to leave something for the end, right? Just in case.
Absolutely.
Give me a second.
So in the middle of your renovations, if you have a subcontractor that's not meeting up to your expectations or the expectations of what you initially agreed to, how do you dismiss them in a professional way?
Yeah, in a nice professional way.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how we handle that internally is depending on the situation. So let's say they're not they're supposed to be done with something in 2 weeks, and we're coming close to those 2 weeks, and they're not manning the property enough. You know, they've got one guy there, and I know from experience it's going to take at least a crew of 5, and he's sending one guy. At that point, we have a form that pretty much says you need to man the property efficiently to complete it by a certain date or whatever, and you have till tomorrow to do so. If not, then we have the right to bring in another crew and back charge you accordingly.
Is that at the moment of when you see the the problem starting to happen, or is that part of the initial contract?
Well, the initial contract says that that's part of the process, that we have the right to do that.
Okay.
And then once it starts happening, then yeah, as soon as you see that it starts happening, you need to jump on it. It's almost like a lot of things that happen with employees. If any of you own businesses, and it's very common for someone to keep an employee longer than they really should. But essentially, it is better to part ways sooner. Same thing with a subcontractor.
Jorge, I recognize this project is in Oklahoma, and I'm not sure what the economy is like there, but in Texas, I mean, contractors they write their own ticket. What's that environment like? Are you finding it difficult to find contractors there, or is it a little bit more robust than Texas?
It's a lot. So you're saying here in Texas, it's hard to find contractors, and
Yeah, they're gonna go where the buck.
Yeah.
They're gonna go wherever the money is. So we've got there's a lack of labor in construction labor
that's
here.
just overall.
And I just have some clients having a hard time getting contractors to call them back, just because there's so much work. Yeah. So I'm not sure what that environment in Oklahoma was like.
Yeah, and are these general contractors, or are these subcontractors that they're trying to?
These are GCs and subcontractors, because as you know, GCs are going to use a subcontractor for their floor and paint and all that stuff.
Yeah. So how we handle it, which might be a little different and not relate to what you're saying, but we've built relationships where our crews trust us and they want to stay with us, and we've just been lucky to be able to build that over the years. And with this one being in Oklahoma, we're actually using a mixture of some of our crews here, and then we have been able to find, through vetting, some reliable sources in Oklahoma. That's not to say that we may have to let one of those go and improvise. It's just one of those things, right now, like you said, we got the labor shortage. There's a lot going on, especially here in Dallas. The economy's doesn't seem like it's slowing down anytime soon, but yeah, you just gotta watch it, and you gotta know how to vet the subs. You gotta know, or the general contractor, and then you gotta build the relationship. Once you have a good GC, you want to make them part of your team. You want to make sure that they feel like you're working with them and not against them. And unfortunately, a lot of people don't realize that, and they push to where the contractor's like, you know what, forget this.
Hey Jorge, I have a question on the subcontractor. When you are dismissing the subcontractor, are you finding yourself providing the material, or if they are providing the material and it's not to your standard, when you dismiss them and you find another subcontractor, are you paying for that material, or are you paying for the demo to remove the material that is not up to your liking?
Can you give me an example of what type of material we're talking about?
Like, say we're talking about the flooring, say your subcontractor's laying flooring, you walk in, the lines in the flooring are all wrong, you have them stop, it's like, hey, you know what, I need to dismiss you. That subcontractor paid for the material, but the material's already laid out.
Okay. So not the wrong material, they just installed it incorrectly.
Correct.
Okay. I just wanted to, yeah, I mean, as far as the material would be approved for sure before going in. As far as if it is the right material, but they laid the tile incorrectly, and it's going to have to be torn up, then yeah, they're responsible for having to pay for that.
Okay. All right.
Okay. And so we vet all our subs. They all have insurance. They all know if something goes wrong and they're not going to cover it, then we're going to file on their insurance. Not the insurance is going to cover every little thing, but they have a little more to lose, I guess is what I'm getting at.
Mm-hmm. More skin in the game.
Yeah.
Yeah, correct. You're not, Oscar's point is you're not paying them anyways until they're done, so they lose.
Yeah, and hopefully you've got some money on your side as well.
Okay.
Project completion. So yeah, just another question to ask them is, what their procedure is when it comes time to close out the project. Is it just one final punch list that I get with you? Do I even get a final punch list? Like what does that look like? And then warranties, what type of warranty am I getting on the roof? What if they purchase the appliances or any equipment, make sure you get the warranty info for that. And then this may be the last slide, is just some random tips for you guys as far as adding value to the properties. Some of the things that you can do, which we kind of touched base already, is adding more units if all possible. You could take some extra storage room that's in an office space or something that's not being utilized and turn it into units. That right off the bat is going to add value to the property. Then adding some good curb appeal, some character to the property. I'm sure you guys have seen, the cedar accents on the balconies or on the siding. That makes the properties pop. Depending on, this is maybe more for like B class, but adding some more technology like USB ports and maybe even like Wi-Fi in certain areas. As far as affordable amenities, dog parks are great. They're inexpensive, and a lot of people have dogs. But that can also be depending on the area and your tenant base. Then barbecue and sitting areas, that's something that's pretty inexpensive, and the tenants appreciate it. And then repurposing, so some other unused space, versus doing some units. Maybe you make it into a clubhouse or a business center, and you can even maybe do like a work share space as well. Touch base on some interior unit renovations. If you're going to be ripping out countertops for any reason, I always suggest going back with a granite versus a Formica. The cost difference isn't that much more, and your granite's going to last you a lot longer than your Formica. You're not going to have to resurface it every time.
Could you give an idea on difference per unit on a per unit basis? We're talking about $100, $300 per unit difference between Formica and granite, for example.
Yeah, to keep it simple and say like in the kitchen, you're probably looking at maybe a couple $100 because I'm also including the fact that you're going to want to do an undermount sink versus an overmount sink if you do the granite. So yeah, somewhere between like 200 to 300 max.
Okay.
What are your thoughts on the mini car wash?
Oscar's question is in terms of amenities, what are your thoughts on adding, for example, car wash station in a property?
Car wash station. I think it depends on the area. I've seen it be effective. So yeah, I mean, I think it's a good amenity, depending on the area.
Give me a second.
I've also seen dog washing stations as well.
There's some things nowadays.
Yeah. Hey, Jorge, do you have a pricing guideline list that you can share with us? How much it costs for, a square of roof, those kind of things, so that it can help us gauge on how much is the rehab expenses?
Yes, just because you guys are that awesome, I will share it with you. I've been trying to put something together to make it like really, really simple. I just haven't found the time to kind of finish it, but if you guys email me, I'll send you the slides and I'll send you what I currently have. It might be a little more complicated than I would like it to be, but it gives you something that you can use.
Okay. And keep in mind, guys, that it's location dependent. So it's
Yes,
not going to be
definitely
Dallas or McAllen or another city.
Yep.
And going back to the amenities, I personally I've been looking at listings and properties lately, and things that amenities that are going on the crazy side, especially on A-class properties.
Oh yeah.
Like taverns and golf simulators and things like. But again, it goes back to what would your tenants would like and would be willing to pay more to live there.
Yeah, I like that golf simulator. I'd
You gotta
consider
talk to
living
Jesse.
somewhere there.
It's Jesse.
Yeah, no, I agree with when you get into the A class. I mean, you can go nuts with the amenities. In the BC space, especially the C space, you got to keep it pretty
lean, yeah.
Yeah, pretty lean and just. I'm not saying you don't want the amenities. There's not going to be that many to choose from. You want to make sure the tenants are going to use it and it's something that they're going to appreciate. And then in the B class, you can get a little nicer there and I guess you can start testing some of that A class stuff depending.
Right.
So as far as I was in the interior renovations. Just simple stuff, man. I mean, replacing all the plugs and switches can go a long way. Just makes it look a lot sharper. They do also sell, I don't know if everybody's aware of this, but they do sell covers that cover the whole plug and the whole switch, which makes it look just as nice without having to switch out the plug or the switch.
Question here, Jorge, do you have or is there any particular color inside of the units that is like either the norm or typical nowadays?
I mean, we've been sticking to some light grays. I haven't seen the grays really change that much yet. I still think that's the way to go right now. Definitely stay away from beige and those type of old school colors.
Pink, yellow, yellow toilet.
Yeah, I've remodeled a lot of pink bathrooms. um, Cabinets, yeah. So this is just cost savings versus replacing full cabinets. If the boxes of your cabinets are in decent shape, it's cheaper to just replace your fronts, your drawer fronts, and your cabinet doors, and just keep the base. And being prepared. So I think I talked about this a little bit, but I'll talk about it some more. I can't stress enough to be prepared with your business plan from day one and ready to actually execute it. Time and time again, I see someone close on a property and there's just this huge gap of time to where they actually start renovating it and putting their business plan to work. Makes no sense. You've got if you did a syndication and you got your investors' money, you've got to start getting them their returns right away. Spend some time before you actually close, figuring out where your scope is going to be 100%, figuring out who you're going to hire, figuring out your finish outs, and then that way, from day one, you can get started.
Right on.
And then, so here's my email, george@elevatecig.com. Send me an email with your contact info. I'll send you these slides and also the spreadsheet. And then you've got a bunch of other ways to contact me and check out my companies there. And I'll take a bunch of questions if you've got any left.
Any other questions? There's been a lot of questions in the process of that. That's been great.
Yeah, you guys have been doing awesome with the questions, by the way.
Doesn't look like it. So, Jorge, we'd really like to thank you for your time today and, share your experiences and your knowledge. And, appreciate every single second of it.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it too. And definitely get together next time.